Liem Magnus with the white pieces in the first rapid game. No surprise.
Not pawn to f3. This time it's knight to f3, the Reti opening.
He mouse slipped. Yeah. He meant to move the pawn there, but he forgot. He just moved the knight there instead. So, yeah.
And one of my favourite openings, actually, just a very flexible bringing out of the knight. Now white has a selection of choices, which pawn to push.
And talking about mouse slip, a lot of people actually thought that Magnus's 1 f3 yesterday was actually a mouse slip. He actually intended to play this knight move, and somehow by some
serious mouse slip.
Exactly. You know, well, you can kind of click on the square, right, and maybe accidentally, use your pawn and then, whoa, mistake. But no, Magnus had it all planned out.
Yeah, we have seen mouse slips throughout the tour, especially last season, actually. Here we do see Magnus just choosing his music, I think. The board is not up right now. So we have seen mouse slips in the past, but Magnus, he's so experienced these days with the mouse. He plays so much online chess. It's unlikely that we'll see that again. So, OK, just pushing the pawn in front of his king there. Very flexible. This is still very well-known stuff. And now, after black develops his knight, white needs to start challenging for the centre. I'm expecting white's c-pawn to push forward here.
Yeah. This is a bit... I mean, e3 is not the most normal move. I know Magnus had actually prepared one e3 for one of the Olympiads, I think. Isn't that right, as his main opening? But pretty... I mean, this now is going to a more well-known position.
Exactly. And one thing I've done in the past is studied Magnus Carlsen's openings, studied his games, and just looking on an opening tree that you can create by having that pool of information. He's played pretty much every first move there is. So no matter what move he starts with first, he often knows how to transpose back into more mainline waters. And this is, again, this has gone back into something more well-known. Black wants to castle the king away very quickly. Magnus, meanwhile, going for maybe an alternative strategy, pushing the b-pawn. It's not 1b3, but it's the same idea. White's dark squared bishop is going to fianchetto itself. There we go, onto the longest possible diagonal. Maybe hinting at a kingside attack later on. The bishop poised on the same diagonal, pointing towards the black king. But black does try to open up the centre and at least fight for those central squares.
So there are 10 possible opening moves, correct?
20.
1, 2, how's it 20?
So there's 8 pawns, each one of them can move to 2 different squares.
Yeah. Of course. But how many second, and when we come to move 3, right, is like insane amounts of possibilities.
Yeah, I don't even know the number. By the end of black's first move, there's 400 different possible positions.
Wow.
White has 20 options, black has 20 options, so 20 times 20, 400, and that's after one move. Imagine by move 2, move 3, it's...
like in the hundreds and thousands, millions, probably, actually.
Almost infinite.
Yeah, I think there's actually some mathematical formula that someone, found, so we can probably... That's a good question for the audience, I think. I mean, there's that legend, isn't there, how chess was invented, and this person invented chess, and the king said, you can have anything you want in the world. And he said, well, I want 1 grain of rice, but that grain to be doubled for every square of the chessboard. And obviously the king ran out of rice. He thought, that's easy, I'll just give him, that's, what's that bit of rice? But he'd run out of rice, and he's like, I can't do it. So that was sort of one of the legends around the origin of chess.
And what is Magnus up to here? It looks like he's just resting his eyes. It's his opponent's move, but it definitely looks like something's up with the world champion.
Power nap time.
It's not a good time to have a power nap, though, is
No,
it?
power naps are awesome, actually. They give you...
Maybe not during the games.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you can actually have a power nap in like 45 seconds, and it will give you...
Really?
Yeah, it will give you a boost for 1 hour.
Is that so?
Yeah.
45 seconds?
Yeah. Because I used to do it all the time, because at some stage in my life, I suffered from this illness, which really made me tired. And I was having power naps all the time just to kind of play chess.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
You have to set an alarm, though, normally to try and wake up, and Magnus doesn't have that luxury. OK, meanwhile, we do see a trade of a set of pawns in the centre, both sides just with very solid positions here. I think Magnus will be happy with the outcome of this opening, just because there's not too much action. It's the type of position where you can just close your eyes for a minute or two. There's no direct attack, but it's Magnus's move now, and is he aware?
This
Does
is
he know
very
it's his move?
strange. Is Magnus Carlsen asleep?
No, I think he must be recalling some variation that he's looked at. I say that and I'm like, hang on a minute. I'm not sure. He can't have just fallen asleep at the board. I mean...
it's been like that for 2 minutes now.
Should we go and give him a shove?
Look at the breathing.
His hand Okay, the breathing does show.
Sorry.
His hand is on the mouse, though. Do you sleep with the hand rested like that?
Well, Magnus would.
Oh,
It's the most natural position.
He couldn't have just walked in and fallen asleep.
But if you're really tired, it's actually
he's
possible.
moved.
No, but did you see he had that, you know, when you wake up, you have that, he was asleep.
And when you get older,
Funny.
you tend to fall asleep doing things. So
Yeah,
like you'll be there with your mobile phone and then no.
And you know the other feeling when your head dips.
He could
Like on an aeroplane.
Or he could have slipped with the mouse, couldn't he, and just put his piece somewhere if he's
but
not
he's back
careful.
But he's back to sleep again.
And he hasn't made a move.
He hasn't made a
Clock's
move.
ticking. And I mean, okay, so clock's ticking now for a minute and a half. Is this a moment to take a pause?
Not really. I mean, there's maybe two sensible moves I can come up with here. One is the most simple, castling the white king to safety, which he did eventually play. Another one was maybe developing the white queen. But, OK, he castled, and now he has perked up, avoiding now a knight trade. That's quite an instructive move. You don't want to trade off pieces when you have extra space here. It's very symmetrical, but white has a tiny bit more central control, slightly better bishops here. But, OK, Magnus.
I wonder what the rule is if someone falls asleep in a tournament. I don't think you're allowed to wake them up because it's outside interference. I actually had this once at a tournament. My friend fell asleep in Ireland, and I sort of bumped into his chair by accident to wake him up a little bit, which is probably not allowed. But it was a fun tournament. It was a more relaxed tournament. But, you know, it's strange. It very rarely happens. There's been a couple of famous cases, but...
Has there? What's the most famous? Well, I know there was the Sochi match with Magnus and Anand.
Yeah,
some images of Magnus falling asleep.
There. Yeah, I mean, I remember that one, and I remember Anand was just like looking at Magnus, kind of thinking, what's happening here? And also happened to one of my friends, but she had a good old 20-minute nap.
20 minutes?
Over the board. And the arbiters were really unsure whether they should do something, you know, because 20 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
But in the end, you know, just when they're about to build up the courage to wake her up, she kind of woke up like that and
played
on playing.
All right, we do have a few moves here. Magnus is now awake, luckily.
Yeah,
Is there anything happening?
Nothing too exciting yet. We do have a few moves. The strangest thing for me is where white has put his queen. Magnus, I don't think this was a mouse slip, but white's queen now has completely blocked in the rook in the corner. So a bit of a strange strategy there, maybe just trying to find a safe square for Her Majesty there, the queen, just to kind of create open lines for the other rook to land on in the centre of the board. So a bit of a strange one, I've got to say. I think black should be fine here, but black does have a problem with his bishops. Black's bishops lack kind of scope here. They lack open diagonals. And meanwhile, the black queen also needs to move out the way to connect the black rooks. So very, very symmetrical, should be balanced, but some small details.
Yeah, sorry, David, I was just seeing, I thought h6 might be a good idea because there's this typical plan of throwing the knight in with the queen there to try to get some checkmate ideas, and this move stops all those ideas at least. But it's a fairly symmetrical structure, isn't it? So unless someone can prove their pieces are better, it should be equal, really, when the pawn structure is symmetrical.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned they're symmetrical, should be equal, and I completely agree. That's why I'm so surprised the evaluation bar is in Magnus Carlsen's favour. I mean, the evaluation bar clearly doesn't know who the more kind of wide awake of the two players is. But either way, to give white a +1 advantage is very surprising when there's not actually that much direct action happening. Maybe we can try to jump into the position to explore why. The computer loves white's position here. We mentioned the strange position of white's queen. And Simon also mentioned maybe the idea was it was pointing towards the black king. If black had been careless and just made a random move, then the white knight might jump forward, maybe some hints at an attack later on. But this was stopped by Liem. He just pushed a pawn forward in this position, stopping the knight jumping. And now Magnus has indeed planted his rook in the center, staring down at the black queen. I'm wondering, just because the evaluation bar jumped back down, I'm wondering whether white maybe missed a chance to push his pawn in the center forward to try and destabilize black's knight, just to try and kick it away, gaining even more space before black's ready. But after the rook did move, the black queen now jumping out of the way as well. If black gets time to centralize the rooks, black is completely fine. Magnus needs something quick, something aggressive at this moment before it's too late.
Yeah, and some interesting lines there. Maybe a crucial moment that you highlighted. And, well, Magnus instigating some action on the left side quite quickly, you know, destabilizing black's pawn center. But we do like it, when the games are such fun, and we love it when everyone at home interacts with us. And you can always send us your tweets, your selfies, your questions using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And talking about selfies, I have to share with you 2 awesome selfies. One from Heidi Jawar, who is actually watching Magnus on the plane to Cartagena. That's pretty cool. And who's good at doing impressions?
Simon?
I'll try, but I'm rubbish.
Okay.
But I don't mind. I'll give it a go.
Okay, can you do Alan Partridge?
No.
Knowing me, knowing you.
Knowing me, knowing you. No, I can't, basically.
Well, anyway, I say this because Gary Agnew is watching our coverage at an Alan Partridge show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a waste of a ticket. Is it that bad?
No, it's awesome.
Maybe we're that good.
Yeah, we're great.
That's the one.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that one as well. So if you want to send us your selfies, please remember to do it in landscape mode. Then tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps, and we'll try and feature them on the show.
Definitely. Please do use the hashtag #ChessChamps. Now, Liem has taken a little bit of a pause here. Now, Sverre, out in the lounge, he's able to get interviews with the players as they arrive. Eric Hansen today, he is fighting back after losing to Anish Giri yesterday. And let's hear what Eric said when he entered the building a few, 15 minutes ago.
Day of anticlimax yesterday. You played good chess, but you had one move that kind of defined the match. Do you take a good or a poor feeling into the day today?
I generally take good feelings, that try to take the good things from those games and get some sleep and oh, that's my alarm going off. Okay. Treat every day.
You have to remember to play chess today, right?
Exactly, no, but every day there's a new match, a fresh start. So with a format, you can have a bad day and recover pretty quickly. So I'm hoping to take advantage of that and do well today.
Still got a good feeling going into this?
Yeah. I mean, the games aren't going to get any easier, but I'm building confidence when I play like the way I did yesterday.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Eric Hansen currently playing with the white pieces against Jordan van Foreest, and I love to see Eric in a great mood. Such a good player and great timing. Bunch of moves now coming out.
Yeah, the move's flying onto the board here. And again, it looks like it's maybe going in Magnus's favour. So what has happened is that after the tension was kind of clarified on the left side of the board, pawns just blocking up there, White's knight leaped into the middle instead of going for a trade of knights, which would only have helped White activate the queen. Instead, Liem just blocking things up, and he's trying to use the black knight in the center of the board just to kind of stop White's active plans. But this last move by Liem is an offer of a pawn sacrifice. He's allowing Magnus to actually capture the black knight in the center of the board with White's bishop, White's rook at the bottom as well, also eyeing up that square. So White can win a pawn, but it will come at the cost of a bishop for knight trade, and Black will then have the bishop pair. So the position will open up, maybe in Black's favor, because the bishops love open lines. So big moment now for Magnus. Is he going to capture the black knight in the center of the board with his bishop? It's quite likely we'll see that, so we'll show it if it does happen. But if not, then maybe he needs to improve the white queen, improve that white rook in the corner of the board, because that one is asleep right now. And yeah, it looks like Magnus at least is awake. And he'll be looking for active ideas, because he does have a small time advantage. He has a healthy position, and still the critical moments are ahead.
Okay. The other matches going on, we see in two of them, actually, the bars have started moving. The bar is liking it for Anish Giri against Jan Christoph Duda. He was quite upset yesterday after losing to Magnus Carlsen and apparently struggling maybe a little bit here in the game against Anish Giri, their game number one. I also see the bar in the game between Eric Hansen that we just heard from and Jordan van Foreest. The bar is slightly over to the Dutch youngster's side. He also lost yesterday, fighting for a comeback today. We do have a rook move on the board.
Yeah, and it was that transition that I mentioned. The bishop captured the knight, and then the rook backed it up, and white is a pawn up now. Jovanka, what do you think?
I was shocked, actually. I was not expecting that at all, because it determines the position. Suddenly, the position has changed its nature. It's a very dynamic one. Look at the bishop pair that Black has. And I was expecting Magnus to actually do what he does best, which is just to build, improve his pieces, and wait for the tension to evaporate at a later stage.
It's not really like him to grab a pawn like that. I mean, yeah, it's a free pawn, but he's got to have some pressure against him now, and it's long-term pressure as well, because Black's got the famous 2 bishops, and Magnus loves those bishops. So I'm also surprised that he's gone for this. I mean, what about you, David?
Yeah, I mean, you know me and my bishops as well, Simon. I'm really, really hesitant to ever part with the bishop, even if you can win a pawn in the process. The computer might say +1 because white is a pawn up, but at least it's much easier for Black to play now, and that's why Magnus has paused. Black's plan is simple. Black actually wants to trade off everything, which is not really intuitive when you're a pawn down. But if Black does trade everything off, look at Black's light squared bishop. It's unchallenged, and it's pointing indirectly towards some of White's pawns over there on the queen side, on the left side. So if we see a trade of rooks now, I'm not sure what else Magnus could be thinking about. Maybe he's going to push a pawn to attack Black's queen. But there we go. The exchange of rooks did happen. And now Magnus has some serious questions to answer. How is he going to protect his pawns over there long term? And he protects his pawns by retreating his knight from the center. So already taking steps back, it doesn't feel right for Magnus. Computer still unsure, still thinks White is the one in the driver's seat, but not by much.
And how will he get that white rook into the game after sort of locking it in with his queen?
Yeah, he just needs 2 moves now. He needs to move the queen out of the way again, and then he can bring his rook towards the center. So right now, this was the position a couple of moves ago. I was slightly surprised we didn't maybe see a pawn push attacking Black's queen, but after a trade of rooks and the knight jumping back, I'm expecting Magnus now, if he's given time, to move his queen forward. For example, if Black just waits to move his queen forward and then to unleash this rook, this sleeping giant. So he needs to bring it to this square, maybe to an open line, and he can team it up with the queen. That being said, Liem does have a couple of moves before this plan comes into action, so maybe we could see the knight jump to the side of the board at some point, attacking this pawn. Another move that comes to mind is maybe the queen coming forward just to stop that idea I mentioned of Magnus trying to occupy the open line. But then again, Magnus could maybe swing his queen across in a different direction and then finally unleash this rook. So still very complicated. Both sides have their ideas.
What would you say is most likely right now, Simon? A win for either of these players, or is this looking a little bit drawish?
I think it's a little bit early to say. I think it's getting to a very interesting moment of the game now, and over the next 5 moves, 10 moves, we'll have a much clearer picture. I mean, Magnus is a pawn up, so if he can just stabilise that pawn, swap some pieces off, is normally a very good thing to do when you're a pawn up, because you want to take out any tactics. If he's able to do that, he'll probably win. But if Liem can keep the pressure on and keep those pieces on the board, then any result is possible, that old cliche. But I kind of like what Liem... I think he's done a great thing here with the 2 bishops. It looked like he was under some pressure, and offering that sacrifice was a very clever idea to give him at least some chances to play for the win.
I think in practical terms, it's, as you mentioned, Simon, it's kind of 3 results are all possible, but it's also relatively simple, at least knowing what Black wants to trade off later. I think this next couple of moves are key, just to try and contain the activity of White's pieces. And Liem just has to make sure he stays relatively kind of at a decent amount of time on the clock, but also that he can stop White's queen and rook entering the game. So he's paused at the right moment. He's given up a pawn. Good decision, I think. And now taking that time out. And I'm assuming this is Magnus's screen, not Liem's.
Yes.
Also, I was going to say it gives Magnus a chance to fall asleep if he has a little break as well. Have a little rest and see if he
needs to play some Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. What? Who? Magnus done.
Wham.
Of course. Apparently, he's playing a Norwegian super hit song called "See the Fire Light." That was a bad translation, but yeah, it's a big hit from the 1994 Olympics. Apparently, that's what he put on.
Oh,
yes.
1994 Olympics. Is this Lillehammer?
Yes.
Oh.
And they made this beautiful song by Sissel Kyrkjebø.
Can you sing it for us just a little bit?
No.
Come on.
She's like a Whitney Houston kind of singer, so you don't want to hear me sing that song.
I think we do.
No.
Yeah. Actually, I know an interesting fact about Sissel Kyrkjebø. She is the aunt of 2 Norwegian. Actually, maybe there's more Norwegian. 2 Norwegian chess girls.
Really?
Yeah.
See, she's a chess singer.
Yeah.
The blood here in Norway.
Yeah. Very cool. So Magnus, he's trying to get a little bit fired up with some Norwegian hit tunes because he has been a little bit tired.
Sorry, Kai. I was just looking at the position, and this last move surprises me again.
Okay.
I mean, I think this move that Liem played was very clever, just moving the queen, as I think David pointed out. But Magnus moving his queen into the line of a rook, it looks odd to me.
Yeah, it looks very odd. I guess the idea is the move that I actually mentioned earlier. My first instinct for white was to move the queen the whole way, actually even next to the white king, but that might have allowed the black queen to jump into white's position, to jump to the c2 square on the second rank, attacking some stuff. So white here, Magnus, just wants to keep control of any entry square that the black queen wants to use. But as you mentioned, Simon, it's so unnatural. Queens feel extremely uncomfortable opposite opponents' rooks, and Magnus, he's going to have to waste another move later, putting his queen out of the eye line of that black rook at the top of the board. So Liem, it's not clear exactly what he wants to do now. I think Magnus is just trying to frustrate him for the next couple of moves and then think about how to improve the position later on. Very strange move, but that's why Magnus is world champion. He comes up with these strange ideas which prevent the opponent's plans.
And as we've seen consistently, actually, Magnus never follows the wisdom of the old greats. He's always breaking the rules, you know, playing something that they would not approve of. And here, I agree, it looks ugly, and it does feel like now is the moment to try to punish this move. But I don't see anything. OK, the queen recentralizes herself. I mean, I guess that's an anticipation of the white rook actually moving itself to attack the queen on the open c line.
Yep, and the white knight now in front of the white queen is pinned. It cannot move out the way because the black queen will just capture the white queen. I think it's time for Magnus to get out of the firing line, move that white queen again. Maybe the white rook can finally join the action now as well, but OK, Magnus, he needs to be accurate. Liem, I think he's doing a good job of just making things difficult.
Yeah, I think so. And I was just wondering about something you said there, Jovanka, about Magnus breaking the rules and doing things differently. And I'm just thinking what the ghost of Bobby Fischer or the ghost of one of the old world champions would be thinking if they saw the future world champion playing 1F3. Can you just imagine what Fischer would do?
I think Fischer would approve.
Wouldn't he approve, yeah?
I think so,
I don't know.
but I think the Soviet
sure.
ones, like Botvinnik, would be like, out. Get out.
There's that expression, isn't there? Throw them out the Soviet school.
Yeah.
If someone plays a really crazy idea, like get out of the school. You know, it's like you can just imagine him. What is this modern day rubbish? You know, so I can just weird images.
Grandmasters have been thrown out of Botvinnik's chess school for much less than what Magnus did yesterday.
Really?
1F3, and also seeing Magnus fall asleep, Botvinnik would be having some stern words with the youngster there.
But isn't it a little bit interesting if this is some sort of tactic from Magnus to sort of psychologically put his opponent off? Even the sleeping incident and coming in a little bit late must put Liem a little bit, off.
Yeah, you mean you would think that? I mean, you have to pick your opponents. There's certain people who are very principled and like, come on, well, what are you doing? You know, I'm a grandmaster here. You need to treat this with some respect. But Liem doesn't give off that vibe, as we saw in the interview with Sverre, and also when I had a chat with him, he just seemed very calm, very happy, and I think he would just look at Magnus, go, "Oh, Magnus sleeping, great,
Great for me,
great for me. He's tired."
Yeah, and he is playing a good game. Simon also said it. You were liking sort of the road it was going for Liem.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I expect it's still pretty dynamically equal. I mean, just trying to look at some of the major considerations of the position, you can see white has this horrible backwards pawn, which the queen and bishop are both pointing towards. And this is like the one thing I think black can really try to go for. But on the other hand, Magnus has, because of his extra pawn, a very important square in the centre of the board. The centre of the board, the most important part of the board, as you can control all areas. And that square that David's highlighted, you can put a piece there and it can never be kicked away because your pawn, your extra pawn, supports it. So I think these two things seem to me to be the main sort of essence of the position. So, going along that way of thinking, if I was black, I'd be looking at moving my knight to attack the pawn. Then naturally, white can try defending that pawn using both of these concepts we've talked about. And here, maybe I can try to get rid of that knight by, moving my bishop. I know I can't get rid of it with a pawn, but I can try to exchange it. So something like this seems quite a logical way to continue in the position.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is what Liem is just trying to evaluate right now. These, as you mentioned, these moves by black, at least, they create threats on every turn. Therefore, they're very natural. They come to the mind first, checks, captures, and threats. And here there is this threat of taking off the white knight from the board. And then next move, once it's gone, capturing this pawn. This pawn, remember, is attacked 3 times by black's knight, queen, and bishop. So here there's also pins along this diagonal. There's some calculation to be done. That's why Liem is spending so long right now. After knight takes bishop, for example, he'll be working out whether maybe he can think about taking this bishop or whether he takes this knight. If so, whether it's with the black queen, whether it's with the pawn. But for example, at the very least, you could imagine a situation like this. There's still some tension. Black's knight still on a good square, tying down white's army to this pawn and also this pin on the board. So still some stuff to calculate here. That's why Liem is pausing, but I expect exactly what Simon's just shown. Knight to the edge of the board. I think that's the only logical way to start right now. It's difficult otherwise to improve black's position.
And ticking under 4 minutes now, Liem Leb at a sensible time to make some calculations. And we are mentioning Ivanka's deep chess talk with Liem. It's going to be launched tomorrow. If you head to chess24.com tomorrow and click on the collection tab, you'll find that interview with Liem. I'm really looking forward to get to know him a little bit better, basically.
Yeah, you know, it was incredibly fascinating to hear his journey because it's not a story that we hear so often.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it like? You know, when I went into the interview, I was like, what was it like growing up playing chess in Vietnam?
Right.
And yeah, he shed some light into the difficulties and obstacles that he had to face. And a series of exchanges, and it wasn't quite what we predicted.
Well, the bar's just gone crazy. I don't know. It was literally like a yo-yo. You know, get the yo-yo bar out and swing it. I mean, what was happening there?
Yeah.
I mean, did they miss something?
I'm not sure, actually. I'll have to backtrack there. But
sure.
It does look like Magnus maybe has just stabilized the position. And we talked about the advantage of the 2 bishops as being black's main compensation for being 1 pawn down. The 2 bishops have disappeared. Black traded off a bishop for a knight, and this last move by Magnus, maybe this is the key. Maybe this is one that Liem missed. It's not an obvious move, just parking the white rook behind a bishop, but indirectly it protects that pawn on the b file, and now it's not easy for Liem to win his pawn back. Yeah, maybe there was something even better for Magnus. We'll have to take a look. But
the bar went all the way to the top for a second. I mean, I didn't see it, but there could have been. I mean, this looks like a very logical, as you say, David, way to play for Magnus. But I don't like what Liem Le Quang has done here.
Yeah.
In this so far, giving up a bishop, and you can see that he's not winning a pawn back. So yeah, it's strange.
It's strange, and now we should mention if black does go and capture the very strong knight on, in the middle of the board, the knight on an outpost, if black does trade it with his bishop, white's bishop will recapture out of the way, and then white's rook at the bottom of the board will protect a pawn. So white is just a clear pawn up now, and minimal compensation. White's still a bit tied down, white's rook not on the most active square, but Magnus, if you're given this type of advantage, and now as we edge towards the endgame as well, he normally converts these types of positions, and also the clock times very much in Carlsen's favour. So he's woken up, his position looks good as well, and Liem faces an uphill struggle.
Seems the song that Magnus put on, it really did help. And I just want to make a little bit of a recommendation to all of you. If you're not already following Meltorch Champions Chess Tour on Twitter, Champions Chess Tour is what it's called on Twitter, I really recommend you to do. They have, for example, a post with a bunch of the playlists that the players are listening to, so you can actually check out what kind of music they're listening to, and a bunch of moves.
Yeah, a bunch of moves. And okay, we did mention bishop takes knight was the most natural move in the position. White's knight was just too strong. It's gone now. But after this trade, the black knight jumping back to attack the white bishop. White has defended it now with this rook, and things are just getting liquidated, getting exchanged, getting simplified, and white's still got that 1 extra pawn that's likely to decide the game. Simon, do you think there's any drawing chances here? The evaluation bar not too excited, but to me it looks like white is just a clear pawn up.
No.
No, to save it.
I mean, I think this is going to be very hard for black. It's an extra solid pawn to my eyes. I mean, okay, you still have this weakness we pointed out of the white pawn, which is attacked now by the knight and queen, which, you know, it is a backwards pawn, it is a weak pawn, but pieces are getting removed from the board, and when you're a pawn up, generally, you know, you remove the pieces, you get nearer to converting. So, I mean, I say that, okay, clearly it's not game over yet by any means, and Black can try to create some opportunities. He moves his queen here to pin the rook down, and there's a bit of work for Magnus to discombobulate. Well, his pieces are discombobulated. Bobulate, is that a word? I don't even know. To undiscombobulate his pieces.
Yes.
Maybe.
It's your favourite word, discombobulate. It's a difficult one to say.
I do like it.
I have to also agree with you both, Simon and David. I just think that Magnus is in his element here. You know, he can just keep on improving. And I love the little moves that he's just played, you know, pushing Harry one square, give the king a little bit of air, and now look at the queen and rook. He's primed to take the central D line. It's just looking great. And of course, you've got the bishop as well. Bishop is superior over the knight in this particular position.
There's one tactic here which maybe is Liem's final chance. I think long term, if he just does nothing, White will start to improve the position, coordinate the bishop, the rook, the queen, and it's going to be hard for Black to ever hold this position. But if Black's rook now comes down to the bottom of the board, attacking the white queen, we would actually see a trade of rooks. So you distract the white queen away. Maybe we can show this, or maybe Liem's going to play it. It looks like he's about to make a move. What's it going to be? He needs to move fast. 1 minute now on the clock. But if the black rook comes down to the bottom of the board, White's queen has to take it, and then Black's queen can actually pounce and capture the white rook. So we could see a trade of rooks in this position, and I think this is what Liem has to do. Bring his rook down to the bottom of the board, deflect away the white queen. We see a capture, see a trade, and the only chance now, I think, for Black is to go for this, because at least he will try and win this pawn next move. White has annoying checks, but I think this is his best shot, at least practically.
And sorry for laughing, David, but Magnus was deep into some music digging there.
Okay, and he's played it. He's played this move, and yeah, he'll need that rhythm now in this endgame. It's still not so easy to win, despite what the evaluation bar says. Queen takes rook is about to happen, or it has just happened, sorry, and queen takes rook. I'm expecting a check here, because what else? But at least Black has some counterplay against this pawn.
Yeah, I mean, at least the queen and knight are famous for coordinating extremely well together, and you can see that weak white pawn is actually, it's a serious issue here. So this is, to my eyes at least, not so clear now, and I think things have improved certainly for Liem a little bit here by all standards, but how does he guard that pawn? Is there a...
Well, he doesn't need to guard that pawn. He can actually go along and do his counterattack. So I was thinking check,
okay.
or and then...
Maybe something like this.
Yeah, And one other idea that I had was just attack the knight, you know, drop the queen back along the C line, and again...
This is a critical moment, isn't it? If he can find the right way, both of these ideas look quite dangerous. I mean, does queen g4 even force the exchange of queens? Because if it does, that's a very safe way of playing.
Yeah, I think maybe Black can push this pawn forward, but then there are going to be tactics all the time against the Black king. Some ideas of taking this pawn at some point. Some kind of pin, not right now, but at some point later, of pinning this king. It's a lot to work out, and actually Magnus, I'm surprised he allowed this. But either way, Liem fighting really hard. We mentioned before the game, his style is very much kind of a street fighter. He's not always dominating, controlling games. Sometimes he does, but in general, he's always looking for tactics and ways to transform the position. So, yeah, still some real life ahead in this game.
So a critical moment. We're super eager to see what Magnus do. Critical moments happening other places in the Oslo Esports arena as well. Apparently, Shakhriyar Mamadiyaro has made a huge blunder against Pragnanda, and we see the bar loving it for the 16-year-old.
And we can just see it from his body language there. We saw Shak go, and
realizing maybe there that he blundered.
And it just goes to show how resourceful Pragnanda is, you know, how confident he is. You know, we saw him yesterday in his game against Jordan Van Forest. You know, he took some really gutsy decisions. And now, I mean, this is great news for Pragnanda, because I have to say, his score against Shakhriyar in previous events has not been that great. And, well, anything can happen, of course.
Of course.
I mean, they say there's no luck in chess. Maybe there's not, and you create your own luck. But he was, as you said, Jovanka, yesterday, he was losing 2 games against Jordan, and he won both of those games. And here he was losing this game. He may be winning this game now, and he's certainly, I want to know what he's doing, because he's certainly doing something special to turn the positions around. Very resourceful, I guess.
Yeah, and I just peeked over at their game just to see where the mistakes were in the game between Prag and Mamadjarov. And it's as if he just flicked his magic wand and out of nowhere, some crazy tactics happened. He just sacrificed a piece, sacrificed another piece, and he's winning. So he's down, but a big attack for Prag. And normally, actually, we see Mamadjarov doing that to his opponents. Normally, he's the one flicking his magic wand and checkmating them. This time, Prag, and there we go. He has won the game.
Wow,
the first game has finished on day 2 here in the Oslo Esports Cup. Pragnanda, the 16-year-old, he won his match yesterday, getting a great start also now to day 2, a win against Mamadjarov in the first game, taking the lead in that match. And the question is, will Magnus Carlsen do the same against Liem? And here we have the answer to that big decision.
Okay, so some very quick moves. We did see a check, and the white queen choosing a different square, not one that we mentioned, but also was threatening checkmate on the last turn, teaming up the queen and bishop, and that has been stopped now by Liem. So white does have kind of the safe option at some point of using the white queen and going back down to capture black's pawn on the b4 square. So Magnus has actually found a very safe way of proceeding. And even if that weak white pawn drops now, white will be a pawn ahead. Still very difficult to win. Queen endgames, it's all about passed pawns. Neither side has a passed pawn right now. But yeah, Magnus trying to squeeze out the advantage. Liem fighting really hard.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that pawn did drop.
I guess if the queens come off, you're really going to put Magnus as, you know, nearly 99% favourite. So this is why Black's kept the queens on the board. He has more chances to trick Magnus. And of course, we mentioned the knight and queen work very well together. Saying that, it's a safe pawn, isn't it, really, now? So nothing to worry about.
It's what we call a 2-result game, right?
Yeah.
I guess so. Magnus playing for the win, but even if Liem defends perfectly, it's only going to be a draw. I think it's going to take a miracle for Liem to win this game. That being said, he is creating some sneaky threats, using that black knight, going towards the white king, threatening some checks, and the white king running away to safety, preempting any checks.
Maybe, I'm not sure about that king running away to safety.
No, I was wondering what you do against this move.
Yeah.
Wow, and
No,
look,
I mean,
I missed that one as well.
I mean, knight a2. Oh, and look at Magnus. He's shaking his head a bit. Did he just miss it? Oh, my words, look at it.
Look at that
And his
reaction.
mouse slipped.
Oh, no.
And Magnus's mouse slipped. He just gave away his queen.
And he's lost.
Game over.
Incredible.
What?
Wow.
Oh, this is so dramatic. What just happened? A huge mouse slip?
Yeah.
Blunder first and then a mouse slip. It just fell apart for Magnus in the space.